Now this happens. So early in my career, it was like people would just come up to me and be like, "Burn!" from Kelso, right? And I'd be like, "Oh, gee."
It was definitely something that I knew was going to really push me out of my comfort zone, that it had a lot of challenges.
They seemed like the perfect match. Two Hollywood stars who radiated affection every time they appeared together, unafraid to break boundaries and conventions. But behind the glitz and glam, Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher faced struggles that even the bright lights of celebrity life couldn't hide. Their whirlwind romance captured the world's attention, only to dissolve in heartbreak, betrayal, and a search for redemption that would take years to fully unfold. And in the end, what seemed like a modern fairy tale offered powerful lessons about fame, love, and the deeply human need for acceptance. They first crossed paths in 2003 at a casual dinner gathering among friends. Moore, fresh off personal challenges and a high-profile divorce from Bruce Willis, was in no rush to date again. Kutcher, on the other hand, had become a fast-rising star known for his playful spirit and a popular prank show that spotlighted his love for mischief. It's hard to imagine two people from such different phases of life fitting together so effortlessly, but sparks lit up the instant they began talking. From that moment, the mood around them shifted. Even mutual friends noticed a magnetic connection that couldn't be ignored. Before long, the media got wind of their relationship. Paparazzi followed them everywhere, snapping photos and publishing endless stories that tried to dissect every glance, touch, and subtle comment. Reporters loved pointing out the 15-year age difference. Many were stunned that Moore, already a legendary star with blockbuster credits, had fallen for someone so much younger. Interviews kept probing whether Kutcher really knew what he was getting into, and tabloids fueled the narrative that an older woman dating a younger man would never last. Yet Moore and Kutcher laughed off the skepticism and presented a fearless front. Every time they hit the red carpet, they seemed to signal, "We're in this together." The public couldn't get enough. Fans saw them as a new kind of Hollywood couple, one that challenged long-standing double standards. For decades, older male actors had routinely dated and married younger partners with barely a raised eyebrow, but Moore's choice to embrace a younger man was met with shock and curiosity.
Getting up in the dark with a trainer, with headlamp, biking all the way to Paramount, wherever, even on location where we were shooting, then shooting a full day, which is usually a 12-hour day, and then starting all over again.
Oh my goodness.
Even just the idea of like what I did to my body, it's like so crazy, so ridiculous.
She stood firm, reminding everyone that genuine connections often transcend numbers. Kutcher, for his part, displayed an unwavering devotion in interviews, speaking highly of Moore's strength and resilience. He admired her long career, and she adored his adventurous energy. It all seemed like a sign they could overcome any obstacle. Their wedding came just 2 years later, in 2005. It was a private yet star-studded affair that showed how serious they truly were. Close friends, family, and industry icons gathered under one roof to celebrate a union that most had never seen coming. Moore's ex-husband, Bruce Willis, even attended, indicating a modern kind of blended family that people found remarkably civil and mature. In an era when the press devoured any whisper of drama, having your ex-spouse show up at your next wedding without sparks flying seemed almost radical. Kutcher also stepped into the role of stepfather to Moore's 3 daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah, with surprising ease. Rather than staying on the sidelines, he seemed to embrace the chance to guide and mentor them. They went on vacations together, hung out at home, and formed a tight bond that inspired many fans watching from a distance. The concept of a seamless blended family felt refreshing for those who often saw only tension and bitterness when celebrities with complicated histories came together. On the career front, both appeared unstoppable. Moore's star power was already legendary, having scored major hits in films that spanned everything from drama to action.
Women in general there is a sense of it not being okay to be angry.
Yeah.
There is a limitation in a way. Not that anybody's saying we can't, but kind of that it's been like, in a way, like the collective consciousness of like, oh, that's not attractive.
Kutcher's name, meanwhile, was on the rise, propelled by comedic roles and his relentless ability to reinvent himself. After captivating young audiences with his prank show, he began landing notable film parts. Projects that showcased his romantic comedy persona skyrocketed his public profile, and he soon became an in-demand face in Hollywood. It looked like their collective fame only added to the power couple persona. They attended red carpet events hand in hand, exuding the warmth of a duo that had defied all the rules and won. Yet even at the height of that happiness, a steady undercurrent of worry started to build. Their age gap, though a popular talking point, wasn't the only element that made their relationship fragile. They were at different phases of their lives. Moore, already a mother of 3, had weathered the ups and downs of stardom for decades, while Kutcher was still riding a wave of new experiences, new fans, and the lure of a broader Hollywood playground. It's one thing to dismiss critical headlines, but an unspoken divide began forming between them. The subtle cracks would eventually burst into the open, setting in motion a chain of events that neither could contain. A turning point arrived around 2006 when Moore suffered a devastating miscarriage. She had been carrying a daughter, a child that she and Kutcher had decided to name Chaplain Ray, and the emotional blow was staggering. Even though Moore was already a mother, she felt a renewed excitement about having a child with Kutcher, who had not yet experienced fatherhood, but the miscarriage triggered an immense sense of loss and guilt. She sank into despair, blaming herself and feeling as if she had failed not only as a woman, but as a partner. Her method of coping involved alcohol and painkillers, plunging her into a fog of self-blame. During this painful chapter, Kutcher's work life surged forward. His comedic style and boyish charm kept winning him new fans, and he was off on location shoots for movies that paired him with glamorous co-stars. Moore, meanwhile, took a step back from the spotlight to focus on home life and her own healing, finding herself increasingly isolated. Their once shared world started feeling like two separate spheres, one filled with paparazzi and career highs, the other weighed down by private sorrow. They never openly displayed their pain to the public, trying to maintain the perfect facade, but their inner circle, and eventually fans, began sensing an unmistakable tension. That tension escalated when Kutcher signed on for a movie called Spread, a project that revolved around a young man seducing older women. It was an ironic reflection of the rumors swirling around them. According to Moore's later accounts, Kutcher repeatedly discouraged her from visiting the set, claiming it would make his co-star uncomfortable. She suspected something else was at play, that Kutcher himself was uneasy with her presence. Whether it was paranoia or something more, the lack of transparency set alarm bells ringing in her mind. Once the cornerstone of their relationship, now showed early signs of crumbling. Even so, Moore tried to hold the marriage together. She continued showing up for red carpets, smiling for the cameras, and putting on a united front. She wanted the world, and likely herself, to believe their love was as strong as it had been the day they met. Kutcher joined her in that public display of unity, joking about their age difference when asked, and praising Moore's resilience. But in private, resentments and insecurities festered. Divergent lifestyles, subtle lies, and unspoken fears lingered just under the surface. A pivotal moment came when they introduced a third party into their relationship at Kutcher's suggestion. Moore later revealed she had gone along with this idea to prove she could be fun and open-minded, hoping to reignite the spark that felt dimmer each day. The plan backfired, drawing invisible lines that made them wonder what was acceptable and what was not. She felt torn between her discomfort and a desperate desire to keep Kutcher engaged. Yet, in catering to what she believed he wanted, she compromised her own boundaries. That shift seemed to open the floodgates. Stories emerged in 2010 about Kutcher getting involved with a younger woman named Brittany Jones. The rumor was that he hadn't just been unfaithful, he'd allegedly brought someone else into the home he shared with Moore. She confronted him, feeling not only betrayed, but personally disrespected that their sanctuary was allegedly used for this encounter. According to Moore, Kutcher deflected responsibility by saying the lines in their relationship had become blurred after their experiment with a third party. His rationalization left her stunned. It wasn't just the rumors themselves that hurt, it was the sense that he no longer respected the boundaries they were supposed to uphold. Despite the inner turmoil, Moore tried to believe that maybe they could still find a way to heal, but more damaging news kept surfacing. Meanwhile, the gossip columns had a field day with each new twist. The more the tabloids wrote, the more Moore felt her world shrinking. Fans who had once admired the couple's audacity and chemistry now flocked to read about alleged affairs and hidden resentments. The relentless focus on their marriage only magnified Moore's internal pain. Things came to a head in 2011 during what should have been a moment of celebration, their 6th wedding anniversary. Instead of a romantic evening for two, Moore was confronted with fresh allegations that Kutcher had once again cheated, this time with a woman named Sarah Leal at a party in San Diego. Leal eventually spoke out, describing in detail the events of that night and claiming Kutcher told her he was separated from Moore. The timing was excruciating. The scandal broke on the very weekend that symbolized their vows. Moore later described feeling physically ill at the realization that this wasn't merely a rumor.
It kind of is representing some of the old ideals.
Yes.
Well,
I should just say, it is very, very gory and bloody by the end. And your performance is so gutsy and brave. What did you think when they come to you with this script? What's required of you? What the script, what is unfolding in this movie? I must have been terrified.
It was definitely something that I knew was going to really push me out of my comfort zone.
It seemed too specific, too credible, and for her, it was the final straw. Any lingering faith she might have had in saving their marriage evaporated. She felt humiliated, both as a celebrity whose personal life was dissected on every newsstand, and as a wife who had tried to keep the marriage afloat. While she wrestled with heartbreak, Kutcher largely stayed silent. He neither publicly admitted nor denied the specifics. Moore was left grappling with the knowledge that her husband, someone she'd showcased to the world as the love of her life, had apparently betrayed her in ways she could never have predicted. As 2011 drew to a close, Moore announced their separation. By 2012, their marriage was effectively over, even though the official divorce took until late 2013 to finalize. For Moore, the end was nothing short of cataclysmic. She found herself spiraling down a path that intensified her reliance on substances, culminating in a highly publicized health scare at her home. She suffered a seizure that exposed to the world just how fragile her state of mind and body had become. Behind the scenes, friends and family worried she was on a path of self-destruction. Kutcher, meanwhile, appeared to move on quickly, entering a relationship with actress Mila Kunis, a former co-star of his from That 70s Show. It became serious fast. Eventually, they married and started a family, projecting an image of stability that stood in stark contrast to Moore's very public struggles. While Kutcher's new life took off, Moore found herself mourning not just her marriage, but also the close bond Kutcher had shared with her daughters. After the split, that relationship faded, leaving her children to deal with their own sense of loss. In 2019, Moore released her memoir, Inside Out. In it, she spoke candidly about her life, her traumas, and specifically her relationship with Kutcher. She gave readers a raw look at the emotional price she had paid, acknowledging her own choices and how she felt she had compromised her values to keep him. She described an intense period of feeling unmoored, as if she had no real identity outside of being Ashton Kutcher's wife. This admission became a focal point of discussions, shining a light on the ways individuals can lose themselves in relationships, especially in an environment where cameras never stop rolling. Though Moore laid bare Kutcher's infidelities, she also held herself accountable. She revisited the story of inviting a third party into their marriage, recognizing that her desire to be what she thought Kutcher wanted had led her down a harmful path. She admitted that her anguish over the miscarriage played a role in her search for connection, sometimes at the cost of her own emotional well-being. This level of honesty resonated with readers, earning her both support and admiration for confronting such a painful chapter head-on. Kutcher never offered a lengthy rebuttal to Moore's memoir. Aside from a few cryptic social media posts suggesting he could say something but wouldn't, he stuck to a policy of non-engagement. In interviews, he focused on his new life, his children, and the philanthropic causes he cares about, sidestepping any deep discussion of his marriage to Moore. Whether by choice or legal caution, he seemed determined to leave the past behind. Yet the public narrative had already been set, thanks to Moore's candid revelations. For Moore, that openness became a lifeline. Public sympathy shifted toward her once again, and people began seeing her not merely as a figure in salacious tabloid headlines, but as a woman who had endured heartbreak, personal setbacks, and public humiliation, only to confront those challenges with raw honesty. She threw herself into therapy, reconnected with her daughters in a new way, and started focusing more on the meaningful relationships in her life. She also put energy into philanthropic efforts.
I mean, I was in such shock, I have to say. I was not expecting it at all, and I think it just was like pouring out. So I'm glad to hear that it came across and it was felt because it was coming from my heart for sure.
Finding renewed purpose in using her platform to help others who felt overlooked or marginalized. As time passed, the conversation around Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher evolved. Once the tabloids had milked every ounce of drama from their split, the world moved on to new scandals and fresh celebrity intrigue. Moore continued to heal, forging a new chapter that distanced her from the turbulence of those years. When asked about Kutcher, she spoke more with resignation than bitterness. emphasizing her growth and the lessons she'd learned, rather than dwelling on grudges. Ultimately, their story is a sobering example of how fame can amplify every issue in a marriage, especially one that already faced unique challenges. Their dynamic, which initially made them Hollywood darlings, was also what tore them apart in the end. The excitement of a high-profile younger man hooking up with a legendary super-spoken resentments and a parade of rumors became too overwhelming to contain under the glow of the camera flash. Moore's journey didn't end in despair, though. She refused to let her darkest moments define her, using the aftermath to examine deep-rooted issues that she had carried for years. In choosing to speak out about her pain, she exemplified how self-awareness can spark a revival of one's identity. She transformed from a headline-driven cautionary tale into someone who had confronted her past and come out stronger, if a bit bruised. Her resilience remains a testimony to the power of confronting the very parts of ourselves that we'd rather keep hidden. Today, Moore's name surfaces in tabloids far less often. She's still recognized as a Hollywood icon and remains beloved by fans who appreciate her wide range of roles over the decades. Kutcher, firmly established in his own new family life, rarely addresses the time he spent with Moore. While his career continued with mainstream shows and personal ventures, he shifted his public energy toward philanthropic work focusing on technology and activism. Two very different paths, diverging in ways no one could have predicted during the early days of their whirlwind romance. What does their journey teach us? Perhaps that no matter how glossy a relationship looks from the outside, no matter how many red carpet smiles or social media posts promise a picture-perfect bond, there can be hidden depths of pain. Fame doesn't insulate anyone from heartbreak or betrayal. It might even magnify every misstep. And the age gap that once drew so much attention turns out to have been less of a factor than trust, communication, and the willingness to prioritize each other's emotional needs. Their story also underscores how heartbreak can be a catalyst for self-discovery. When Moore released her memoir, many were expecting a gossipy expose, but instead found an unflinching look at a woman trying to reclaim her narrative. She peeled back layers of hurt and confusion, admitting her role in the downfall and shining a light on how easy it is to lose sight of oneself in love. That's a universal lesson, whether you're a global celebrity or just another person making your way in the world. In the end, Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher serve as a prime example of how relationships can inspire public fascination, and how quickly that fascination can turn to speculation and judgment. Behind the glamorous photos was a reality of pain, confusion, and heartbreak. Their bond, once hailed as a progressive sign of changing Hollywood norms, collapsed under weighty secrets and unaddressed wounds. Yet their story doesn't conclude on a note of bitterness alone. Both moved forward. Moore found a type of closure through introspection and candid storytelling, while Kutcher built a new family and philanthropic mission. The final takeaway isn't that love fails, but that love requires more than passion and public approval to survive. Thank you for joining this deep dive into the often hidden layers of a headline-making romance. Their journey reveals that, no matter how famous you are, real connection demands honesty, respect, and an acknowledgement of vulnerabilities. If this story made you reflect on the complexities of human relationships, you're not alone. Hollywood can be mesmerizing, but it also has a way of putting extraordinary strain on what might otherwise have been ordinary problems. May this serve as a reminder that underneath every fairy tale snapshot, there's a multifaceted reality. The glitter fades, but personal growth can continue long after the cameras stop flashing. And in the end, perhaps that growth is what matters most.